Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Deb Talk podcast. It is number 2 for the year, and we have the beautiful Rae-Lynn with us today. And she's actually local. She's up the road from me, and I'm so happy to find out that she's just up the road from me. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Danielle and her as a multidimensional mentor. Also, she's an intuitive guide, and she also helps people to shift and heal through the subconscious mind. So as you guys know, of course, the Deb Talk is all about spirituality in your daily life. And so I invited Rae-Lynn to talk a little bit about her journey towards, her path towards this, what she's offering to people. And without further ado, I'm going to get Rae-Lynn to introduce herself to us a little bit and tell us, how did you get on this path?
Ooh, thank you. It's so beautiful to be here with you. So how did I get on this path? Well, I love that you're close. I love this. This is one of the first podcasts where I'm like, oh my gosh, we could actually go have a coffee.
Yes.
So how did I get here? I really feel like it's a lifelong journey. I share often that as a little girl, I was very intuitive, and I was very connected and playful and lived in this magical state. And then as I got older, I suppressed that, and I did all the things that I was told to do through what I'd been taught from the people that raised me, but also society. And then at one point in my life, I was working my corporate job, and I felt very disconnected from life. And I had an opportunity to take another corporate job in a beautiful mountain town that was a little less busy and a little bit more natural. And I weighed the pros and cons, and I went. And then through that journey, I was really ignoring the signs from the universe. So I was ignoring the moments of hey, slow down. Hey, pay attention. Hey, love yourself a little deeper. And then I was first on scene to a tragic accident a year after giving birth to my youngest son. And I could no longer ignore it. So I stepped into what I had been told would help support me through the emotions that were arising and the fears and the need to control everything. And I was going to therapy, and I was being guided to go onto medication. And I just knew that that wasn't right for me. Yes. And I had what I would call a breakdown to open up and to become more curious to what had become available to me. And I knew that I was meant to do things differently. I knew that I was meant to be a different woman. Corporate world, I was in oil and gas, was not what my life dream was. I was a photographer. I loved to travel, and I just knew that I was meant to do it differently. So I started to say yes. One of my dear friends called me. She introduced me to a transformational coach. And I was like, ooh, yep, that's totally different than what I've been told to do. So I stepped into it. And my beginning journey was unlearning everything that I had been taught that I thought was me. And I stepped into this relationship with this woman for over a year, where I went deep into my own subconscious and my own body. And I stepped into really reprogramming and releasing the negative charges within my own subconscious. And then I became curious, and I knew instantly with the transformation it had gifted me within 1 year that I desired to give that to other people. I desired to hold that space for other women, specifically at that time, who knew they were here to do things differently, who knew that they were here to live from a more whole connected space. And I started to train. So I started with yoga. I have 2 different yoga certifications, and one is very modern and one is very spiritual and very deep. And I love that this is my journey of beginning, because before I stepped into my own internal work, yoga was always there for me in the moments that I didn't know I needed it. And so I started with yoga teacher training, and then I went into energetic healing modalities. And then this past year, I actually stepped it up, and I was like, I actually desire to be able to facilitate the work that I went through in the beginning. So I took really intense training to become a master certified NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnotherapist. And that's led me to where I am today. And
wow.
Yeah, it's really soul nourishing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the energetic healing. What does that entail when we talk about just for our listeners, because maybe sometimes people don't understand what that means.
So I specifically lean on Reiki. So,
Okay,
and
gotcha.
this was due to my very first experience. Before I stepped into hypnotherapy, I had become curious and I wanted to know what was out there. And I met this woman, and she said that she did Reiki, and I stepped into her room after booking a call. I didn't know who she was. We weren't friends on social media. She had no idea who I was. And in the moment that I was laying on her table, and she never touched my body, but I could
Yes.
feel things moving within me and like untangling, and a balance just like swept over me in that moment. I was like, what is this that you're doing? And I dove into Reiki. And so it's like an energetic reset of the different centers in our body. So
Gotcha.
through yoga, I learned deeper about the chakras. And then through human design, I learned about astrology and the chakras like combining. And so in our body, we have different energy centers. So there's the crown, the top of your head, your third eye, the space between your eyebrows, your throat, your heart, and then you have your sacral, your solar plexus in just underneath of your rib cage, and then you have your root, which is at the base of your spine. And just bringing harmony into those through energy. And I had to like really dive into it and learn that I had already been taught about this throughout my life. I've been taught through
Yes.
school and science that everything is
Yes.
energy, but I had forgot this. So
Exactly.
I led myself with Reiki. I've experienced tons personally outside of that, but that's the modality that I choose to facilitate.
Gotcha. Yes,
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to just clarify, because it's huge out there what you can describe that falls under energetic. And you know what? I can just say for listeners that are out there, like if you sometimes we don't believe it because like, oh, you know, it's like it's not real or whatever. I mean, if you want to, we can do a quick little exercise and listeners can actually feel this. Okay. So just like rub your hands together and shake them out. Okay. And then I just want you to hold up the palms and you just feel. Now I want you to look at your left hand and I want you to imagine a red apple. Okay. So now that you have the red apple, I want you to just weigh up your left and right hand. Which one feels heavier? The left one feels so heavy. Yeah. So shake that out. Shake your palms. Maybe just press your thumb into the middle of your fingers. Okay. And then just hold it up. Okay. Now it's again even weight. So that's what it means with energy. Okay. So energy, you're creating it all the time. So it is there. It's not like a woo-woo story. It's science. So we just did a simple exercise where I said, okay, just look at your hand and see the red apple in your hand. Immediately after you can really, you know, visualize it even, the hand starts to become heavier. That's energy.
Love it.
So that's a small little exercise that you can just see how true it is that you can create a change through energetic shifts in your body. Okay, so the thoughts that you're creating, they're creating energetic, how can I say it? They're creating this energy that then affects the physical body.
Yeah,
So
I love that
therefore,
one.
when you energetically clear the body, as Rae-Lynn was saying, there are these chakras, and if you focus on these different chakras throughout your body, you can clear energy. If there should be blocks, if you feel stuck, maybe you had your heart broken, so the heart is closed. So, you know, like people even walk like this, protecting the heart. So when the
Yeah.
heart is open, then you can be open, right? So therefore, if you have an opportunity to sit, meditate on the chakras, it's a way for you to clear energetically those centers, then you'll feel better. So I just wanted to give that to the audience.
That's
So that they can,
beautiful.
because sometimes, you know, it's great to just have a little experience. It helps us
Yeah.
to integrate the information better, right?
Yes, I love that one. I'm going to take the red apple forward with me. I've done it before where I've had them close their eyes and taste lemon
Yeah.
within their
And
mouth. Yeah.
actually, one of the most powerful meditations that I first did like almost 30 years ago, I was completely shocked, was with a grape. One little grape. And I swear to God, I thought that I had never tasted a grape like that before in my entire life. And I had probably thousands of grapes up until that time. So it's
That's so
everything
fun.
is right. Everything is about when you bring your awareness.
Yes, I love
So
that.
your awareness
Yeah.
is very powerful. So it's not so much like, you know, a lot of us, when we start to create stuff, we think, oh, all this bad stuff is happening to us, but you have a choice. When you become aware that you have a choice, you can start to choose different thoughts. And the energetic clearing, what Rae-Lynn was talking about, when we energetically clear ourselves, we have a new opportunity to bring something new in, to let go of the old, of the blockages. And, you know, so unfortunately, we don't, some of us don't understand that whatever we're thinking, whatever we're creating, whether we're thinking or creating it against somebody else on the outside, you're actually doing it to yourself, because you are the only one that's experiencing those physiological changes, energetic changes. Like, for example, somebody did something to you and you're just like, you hate them. You just hate them. They don't even know you exist, maybe. So this hate that you're feeling, who are you hurting? Only yourself. Right? So then it makes no sense to harbor these feelings towards others, rather than to use techniques and tools to help us to energetically start to shift out those things. And that actually comes in nicely with our next question for Rae-Lynn, is about, so tell us a little bit more about when you talk about, you know, the subconscious, how, because of course, I think I've talked about this before on my podcast. For the first 6 to 7 years of our lives, when we come here, we are being programmed, as we are being programmed constantly, but we're just not aware when we're so little. Now, because the frontal cortex has been developed, we have a little bit more awareness. Sometimes we use it, sometimes we don't. But at least in the first 7 years, there's nothing. You're just taking all the information on and on and on. And what the subconscious does for us is, it tries to make our life easier, so you don't have to learn how to talk every day, how to walk every day, you know, so it saves all that information. And just, I think one of the scientists, who was it? His name, I forget his name now, but he's out there, and he says that the subconscious mind can use 40 million bits of information per second. And the conscious mind can only use 40 bits of information. So just imagine, when something is happening, your brain is like, let's go to the fastest route. It just, you know, fast, and it was, and then we kick in with the subconscious. So all the stuff that we're struggling with, that we learned in those first few years, because we needed to survive, because we're quite vulnerable at that age. We have to depend on an adult. The world is big. And so when something happens, we create these barriers to protect ourselves.
Yes.
But now we never check them again. They're just lying there, and we're just running our life because we're in it. So what pure awareness does, so with the conscious mind, is when you can be present and you can see the program running, boom, now you can change it, right?
Yes.
And and so when we're talking about, you know, healing the subconscious, we're really talking not so much about kind of like trying to change the past, but being aware, becoming present to the program, so that when you're present in the program, you can just, in that moment, it changes. And then I like the work probably that Rae-Lynn is doing as well. There are tools and techniques when you get to see the subconscious, and there are some behaviors and thoughts and fears and stuff that you created to protect yourself, perhaps in the first 7 years, but now you're like 30 and 20, you don't need that anymore. So you can gently let that go, but with love and respect, not with like negative, what was bad for me. Because I honestly believe that everything that we do was in to protect ourselves.
Yes.
To protect ourselves from anything that can hurt us, right? But we just forget to check in, because the unconscious mind has programmed it, and now we're just running on the program. So Rae-Lynn, tell us a little bit about these somatic experiences, and like what you do and how you would help somebody to come out of anything that doesn't serve them anymore, that's been stuck.
Yeah. Oh, the way that you express that is so beautiful. Adding to that, one of the ways that I describe it to clients is, a lot of my clients are mothers or parents, and I ask them, like, would you allow your 7-year-old child to drive the bus of your life? down like the main highway. And for us here, that's like the Coquihalla, where it's like 120 kilometers an hour. And I'm like, no, but that's what we're doing as adults. We're allowing that inner child version of ourselves to lead the way that we're choosing to live our life now. So I love how you express that, because it's really beautiful. The integration of your truth is how I lead. So I bring in breath work. We were talking about this before we hopped on here, but I bring in breath work and a form of EFT to really begin my journey with clients so that they can see this.
What is EFT?
So emotional freedom technique. And this is tapping on different acupuncture points on your body as you speak through your emotions. And the way that I have been trained is the beginning, we do 3 rounds. And so the first round is like really venting, expressing your emotions, allowing yourself to speak your truth outwards, no matter what that looks like. Then we become curious in the second one and like lean into what's possible. And then the third round, we lead ourselves with affirmations. And as we're releasing the stored trauma from those places within our body, these new affirmations come from a space that really sink deeper into the subconscious mind. A lot of this is like an entry level into the reprogramming that I do with clients. It's this beginning, like how we just did with the energy, right? Allowing them to feel what it's like with the red apple. So EFT, emotional freedom technique, that's how I lead clients who have never experienced subconscious reprogramming before, because it's an entry point for them to actually feel the shifts within their body. And then I choose to move through with timeline techniques. So timeline therapy, Psych K, different deep subconscious reprogramming where we can discover the root cause.
So can we tell our audience what the timelining is?
Yeah. So timeline therapy is a technique that Tad James has created where I'm specifically trained. And as humans, we all have a timeline. And we can discover this through timeline therapy for you to discover your individual unique timeline. And then we travel through this timeline to really discover the root cause of the program and the belief or the thought that is leading your life. And the way that I describe it is it's different for each of us. But the generalization is we go back to that moment. We're never reliving it. We're always observing it from above your timeline. And you're going to learn your empowering truths from that moment. So you're going to lead yourself to learn the truths as this really beautiful, powerful adult that you are now with all of your life experiences up to that moment. And you're going to learn so that you can take that forward into your future. And then
can I make one comment about the timeline thing? So if they're in the audience, if there are people who don't understand how we can do this, so think about yourself as an entity that has no time. The pure awareness, like energy, you can't divide it, you can't multiply it, it's just there. So the pure awareness is the one that's observing the aging, the one that's observing the time, and therefore you can go back in time, right? So just so people don't become confused about that, it's like you are constantly there as the pure awareness. So therefore you can go even into the future. You can go into the future, you can go into the past, you can go into any timeline. And if there's, like Rae-Lynn was talking about, if we have trauma or trouble or blocks or anything that was established in the past, we can use this technique to go back to that point in time to heal and let go, and then transform, so that now in this time you can be free. Because whatever you created in the past timelines, it's part of you. So if you have the opportunity to go back to heal it, why not? Because then the now can be lived more powerful. Anyway, I just wanted to add that little bit.
I could listen to you speak for hours. I love that. So what we do together, and that's what I really love about time techniques, is like it's a process that we get to do together, and you're conscious for this, like you're present, you're in the now, and you're aware. So I have trained in hypnosis, And what I find to be the difference is clients really like using time techniques because they are present, because they consciously remember and they can bring that forward with them. Whereas when we lead with hypnosis, there is an opportunity that there's not the memory of what we're going into. So I really have led with time techniques in the work that I do with clients. And through that experience that you were just expressing, like as that like pure awareness, you get to release that negative charged emotion. So I work directly with like anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt, as most negative emotions can encompass into those 5 emotions. And when you release that charge, you really get to go forward from like a whole state, and you can lead yourself from that level, and you can be aware of the lessons and the learnings from that experience.
Yes.
And bring that forward with you. And I love
you
that
get to keep the lessons and you get to keep all of the goodness about it, but you get to release what doesn't serve you anymore. And it's like, do you know how I look at it? It's like a clean slate. And it actually, when I think about a clean slate, I always think about techniques like, for example, ayahuasca and those, and even breathing techniques too. What it helps us to do is, because all the problems that we are experiencing is really from this working mind. And the pure awareness is beyond this mind, but how to access it. So a lot of us, we don't know how to access that, right? So a lot of these tools and techniques that are out there now so freely in the world today helps you to go into that area in the brain where you can experience the true self. Yes. And then from this place, you get to, it's kind of like scraping all the thoughts and feelings, emotions, and all this stuff, just clean it. And you get to have a new opportunity. And isn't it so wonderful? So like, I'm always so excited when I talk to people like you, because it's like, we clean out this mental brain that's just making people feel sick and hopeless and feeling like they are victims, and, and then help them to experience their true power. Yeah. Because we all have it. Like God didn't give you more and someone else less. We all got the same God consciousness, right? It's all the same. But it's whether you open your eyes to it or not. So there's the choice. Like, do you want to see the glass half full or half empty? But you have to make a choice. So when you start to see the glass half full, then you start to do the work to make sure that because we are responsible for all those things we put in, negative or not. I remember I had this conversation with God in a way. It's like when I first started on my journey, I was very young, in my 20s. And I was like, and I was already in that time, I felt like I was suffering and my life was overwhelmed, drowning, right? And when I found out, actually, I was doing all this shit to myself. I was like saying, but I didn't know. And God was like, it doesn't matter if you know, you don't know. Now you know. Now you know. And from now you can start to do better. I thought I was going to be exempt because I didn't know. No, we are not exempt. Okay. The good news is that you get to start from now. Yes. And I love that. And from now you can choose something different. Yes. And that really brings back, I love that you brought up responsibility, as I found the same. Like, as I began this work, I was like, ooh, so just because something happened to me doesn't mean that was my fault, but it is my choice and my responsibility to step into what's possible and heal. And so it's not your really fault what happened to you, but it's your responsibility to create the healing for yourself. That's it. Full stop. Yeah. And so what I find to be amazing is it gets to happen quick with different modalities. And so I have found for myself and my clients is what has been healed within me. I'll use myself as the example. In 5 years, that's when I had my first experience. It was only 5 years ago. Yeah. And I'll bring some science in. I'm not really a science person. I love to learn about it, but to express it. So when I began working with my mentor the very first time, after we had finished our first really intense session together, was about 7 weeks. And she's like, I so deeply wish that we had done a brain scan before, like 2 or 3 weeks before. And then we took a brain scan 2 or 3 weeks after we were complete. She's like, because you are one of the greater transformations in my world. Like, you have literally leaned in and showed up fully. And I was simply ready. Like, I was ready. I knew in every part of me. And she said, you were committed. Yeah. And she said, your brain
your brain would actually have shifted and completely transformed.
100%.
Yeah.
That's what Dr. Joe Dispenza does in his
Yes.
workshops, which I love about what he does. He puts people's brains on a scan, and they even monitor it while they're doing all the meditations, and they can see from the beginning to the end the transformation.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always knew that from 30 years ago when I first started meditating and doing yoga. Like I always knew that there's this transformation that you can't even begin to fathom. But I think it's just so great because there are a lot of people who are sitting on the sideline because they think it's woo-woo or something like that. And so people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, I'm so grateful to him too, for doing this work of bringing the science in. So there's evidence. So those people that are sitting on the sideline can now hop in and say, okay, you know, I mean, I think of my own self when my very first introduction to kind of yoga and meditation was actually through a breathing workshop. And I would have never gone to that breathing workshop if it wasn't like, you know, the lady who invited me, she basically showed me all the scientific benefits. I would have never gone if she said, oh, we're going to meditate. Or she showed me the benefits of how when you expand your lungs, you're going to have more energy, you're going to have your thinking's going to be better. I went for the science. It's the truth. And
I love that we're in this conversation because I'm the opposite. I was like, everything I've done up to this point hasn't worked. I'm in. Like, I was just like, I'm in. Like, my life is chaotic right now. And like, I've done the things that I was told by society that would help me, and they're not helping me. So then I became curious. So I love that we're having this conversation because it's the duality of like, we each get to choose, right? Like, and there's the science to back it all.
Yeah. And that's why I'm saying, like, whatever we do is for the benefit of those who have not tried it because they, you know, in two minds about it, or like a lot of people, they don't want to be in this woo-woo world. But actually, when you really understand your true nature, everything is woo-woo.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
We can never begin to understand actually what's going on, you know, until you just connect to your true self. And then from that place, everything is really, really like there's so much magic all around us. So. But Rae-Lynn, it was so wonderful to connect with you.
Beautiful.
And to talk to you about what you do. And it's just marvelous because I love every time when I have a conversation with somebody on a podcast, I love the one thing that's always common is that people have found healing and the true coming home to themselves. And then they want to share that. Yes. Like, oh, it makes my heart so happy because I guess that's how I started with yoga too. It's like, I found yoga and I was like, oh my God, everybody should do this. And a little bit, you know, 90% of the people said no. But over the years, if I think literally thousands of people, I've had the privilege to touch their life. And still today, like I have people that have taken my class like 15 years ago or 20 years ago, and they still remember. So it's such a privilege that to step out of yourself and say, well, I don't know if I'm good, but I'm doing it from the place of love. You know, and I'm grateful to myself for doing that because I think now I'm pretty good at teaching yoga. But
you have the experience to back that.
I think I'm pretty good because it's like, you know how when you do something over and over, it becomes just part of you because there's no separation between you and that. So that's the difference that I see from when I first started teaching yoga and now is that it's more from my heart than from my head. When I started to teach yoga, it was more like from my head. Like I felt like I had to do it right. I had to do it, you know, all these things. And now none of that comes. It's just coming from my heart. And so that's why I'm saying I'm probably a good yoga teacher now, but it takes a good few years and you have to start somewhere, right? But the initial thing was, it came from a place of love. It came from a place of, well, this helped me and I want to share this with others. And over the years in my story is like, you know, sometimes I guess maybe in the past I would have been like, well, you know, this is going to help and you have to do it now. I'm like, this is here if you choose.
Yes, that's right? What I love.
So there's
it's an
more
invitation.
Exactly. But we learn this as we go along. because not everybody is ready in the moment. But if you just leave it, it's kind of like you plant a little seed, and then maybe somebody comes and waters it, and maybe the sun comes and shines on it, and like in 10 years maybe they're ready to do their first yoga class. So that's what I've learned. That was very humbling for me, and I appreciate that so much in my teaching and what I've done over the years with teaching yoga. But yeah, that's one of the things that I love about most of the people that I bring on the podcast, is that I hear that something helped you, and therefore you wanted to explore it more and then teach it. And my yoga teacher actually says, if you want to be good at something, teach it. Yeah, exactly. So Rae-Lynn, I want to thank you so much for taking some time today to talk with us, to our listeners. And I'm going to put all Rae-Lynn's information at the bottom of the podcast if you want to reach out to her. She is a beautiful inside out lady. And if there's anything that she can help you with, she will.
Thank you so much.
It's my absolute privilege and honor to have you as our guest. And I'm sure we will collaborate more on other things because we are so close to each other. And so you enjoy your day, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much.